Hey, quick preface. It sounds like the Treasury Department has already begun processing the $600 stimulus checks. Now it's just a matter of time before that actually shows up via direct deposit. So they might be getting these out much earlier than expected. We thought there would be a 1-week delay. So some good news. It might come earlier though. Don't hold your breath. You can always expect them to come by next week. Now let's get into the update. Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Tomorrow or Wednesday could end up being a bigger day than today was. By this point, you likely already know that the House of Representatives passed a vote to overturn Donald Trump's veto of the National Defense Authorization Act and passed a $2,000 stimulus check bill called the Cash Act that would amend the $600 tiny stimulus checks and turn them into $2,000 stimulus checks. There are also additional provisions in this. This amendment means that not only would filers receive $2,000, but children would receive $2,000, and adult dependents would also receive $2,000, which means college students, adults with disabilities, or just otherwise adult dependents would all receive $2,000. This is a massive change that in total is expected to cost an additional $464 billion on top of the already $160 billion expense for the tiny checks that we have, which totals $624 billion in badly needed money that would go straight into the hands of American people. Now, the vote did not go perfectly. 134 votes rejected the $2,000 stimulus check proposal within the House. However, there were enough votes, 275, to overcome this, with less than a third of Republicans voting to support the bill. Now, Republicans had a few choice words. Kevin Brady said it was time to pause and assess vaccines and to assess the economy before deciding whether or not they should spend additional money. We had Glenn Grothman say that we're starting to look like an Afghani or Bolivian parliament that prints money without paying attention to the fact that they're debasing their currency. And then we heard from Senator Chip Roy, who stated, "Today, I voted against the Cash Act because it will saddle our children and grandchildren with an additional $463 billion in debt, with payments that are not targeted to those in need, nor offset the cuts in unnecessary spending. This does nothing to help small businesses, which have been shut down by tyrannical lockdowns of local governments. It doesn't help them keep their doors open or their workers employed, and giving checks to those whose income has not been affected is an affront to those whose livelihoods have been destroyed by government, and it will not change the need to safely reopen America's economy." Clearly, the issue of funding stimulus checks is heavily impassioned. Now, others argue that stimulus checks ultimately are the best thing that we could do. For example, Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi argue that checks are critical and that rather than being tiny survival checks, these will actually help stimulate the economy, which the economy desperately needs. After all, JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs warn of a potential recession in Q1 of 2021 due to increasing shutdowns and COVID cases. After all, Los Angeles is now the epicenter of COVID in the world. Now, despite the negativity towards the $2,000 stimulus checks, we know that economists are on board with stimulus checks. That, hey, if we can pass stimulus checks, we will be able to pump up the speed at which our economy grows. We will grow or strengthen the economic engine that we will have, and we won't actually have to worry about our grandchildren paying for this debt because our economy will work so much more efficiently that we'll be able to pay off the debt before it even becomes an issue. These are arguments. Now, the good news is the bill did pass the House, along with the House overturning Donald Trump's veto. Next stop, though, is a little bit more complicated. Both of these bills head to the floor of the Senate, where literally the only person standing in the way of stimulus checks is Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell simply needs to bring up the bill for a vote, and the bill is likely to pass. Just a bit ago, we heard that Bernie Sanders said, quote, "McConnell and the Senate want to expedite the override veto of the NDAA. And I understand that, but I'm not going to allow that to happen unless there is a vote, no matter how long that takes, on $2,000 direct payments." In other words, Bernie Sanders is saying he is going to filibuster any action by the Senate unless Mitch McConnell allows a vote on the $2,000 direct payments. And that is because most people believe that if this bill comes up for a vote, it will pass. We just need to hear that it's coming up for a vote. And so Bernie Sanders is taking a stand saying, come on, just bring it up for a vote. Let every senator put on record where they stand on these $2,000 stimulus checks. Which now, obviously, Bernie Sanders is going to need some help to filibuster this bill, though it's unlikely he's going to find many problems getting help. Josh Hawley, who was a big proponent of the $1,200 stimulus checks just in this last negotiation, helped Bernie Sanders, and he's a Republican, try to push for $1,200 stimulus checks and ended up convincing Chuck Schumer to push temporarily for $1,200 stimulus checks. But anyway, Bernie Sanders is going to do anything he can to stop Mitch McConnell from being able to vote on anything or do anything in the Senate until the $2,000 stimulus checks have a chance at a vote. After all, take a look at this from Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders tweeted that 84% of Democrats want the Senate to pass a $2,000 direct payment, that 73% of Republicans want the Senate to pass a $2,000 direct payment, which, by the way, I believe he is talking about some sort of more of a national-based survey, because we know that 2/3 or 67% of Republicans in the House, approximately, did not vote to pass the $2,000 bill. I actually think it was closer to about 28% who actually voted for passing the $2,000 stimulus checks. So we're not entirely sure what Bernie Sanders' pitch here is, or what the source of his pitch is, but he is saying that he believes 74% of independents want the Senate to pass a $2,000 direct payment. The House approved a $2,000 direct payment. Let the Senate vote, Mitch. This, of course, comes right as socialism is also trending on Twitter, and this is because Nikki Haley has come out and said that 2020 is the year that socialism has gone mainstream. Now, unfortunately for Bernie, even if Bernie Sanders is capable of filibustering between now and New Year's Day, whether he gets support or however he manages to keep the Senate bogged down until he gets his vote on the $2,000 checks, the Senate will be closed on New Year's Day, which forces an end to Bernie Sanders' ultimate filibuster, which does mean the Senate can come to work on the 2nd or 3rd of January, a Saturday or Sunday, and pass the veto override before the congressional session expires at midnight on the 3rd, and potentially completely ignore a vote on the $2,000 stimulus checks. But guess what? Bernie Sanders realizes this, but he also realizes that Saturday and Sunday are really important campaign days for Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler in Georgia. So Bernie Sanders is purposefully trying to run the clock out to force David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler to be in Capitol Hill to deal with business at the Senate rather than operate their campaigns, which would help them win or maintain control of the Senate on January 5th. In other words, at the same time as Senator Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, who are in the Senate, would be stuck in the Senate because of Bernie Sanders' actions, the Democrat contenders would be out campaigning for their votes to get into the Senate, to give Democrats control of the Senate, and they'll be campaigning under the premise that we're going to get $2,000 stimulus checks, saying that Republicans are the ones blocking checks. And technically, right now, Mitch McConnell, who is the leader of Republicans, is the only one standing in the way. That is a lot of pressure on Mitch McConnell. Now, Bernie Sanders' point here is to not only obviously mess up the campaign for the Republican senators, but it's also to quite literally make Mitch McConnell feel the burn of the American people, pun intended. From tonight on, for the next 3 to 4 days, America will be hammering Mitch McConnell to bring the $2,000 stimulus check amendment to the floor that promises $2,000 per person, $2,000 per dependent, and $2,000 per adult dependent, or any adult really that qualifies for the last stimulus checks, with the same income thresholds as who got the $600 checks. This means that if you get your $600 check, you would be owed an extra $1,400 for every $600 check you got. Now, technically, because the stimulus checks would be $2,000, people between $75,000 and now $115,000 would still get some form of a stimulus check because the checks wouldn't actually phase out until $115,000 of income. So somebody making $100,000, $105,000 would actually still get some form of a check. technically. We'll see if they extend those brackets. Given the way this bill is worded, that's the way I believe it would work. Since remember, you're eligible for your check at $75,000 and you lose $5 for every $100 you're above and beyond that, which would mean it fully phases out by $115K. So anyway, Mitch McConnell is in an interesting place. On Sunday, Mitch McConnell wrote this letter before the stimulus package was signed, acknowledging that the stimulus package was going to be signed Sunday night. And this kind of implies some interesting communication between the White House and Mitch McConnell. Take a look at the letter here. In the letter, the way Mitch McConnell wrote it, he said, Senator Mitch McConnell, or whoever wrote it for him, Senator Mitch McConnell issued the following statement regarding the COVID-19 relief and government funding legislation being signed into law this evening. He wrote it preemptively, which is really fascinating because Donald Trump's statement says that I have told Congress that I want less wasteful spending and he wants more money going to the American people, including $2,000 checks per adult and $600 per child. Now that's a little bit different from $2,000 per child and $2,000 for every dependent, $2,000 for adults. But what's more important is on the third page of Donald Trump's statement, we get on Monday, the House will vote to increase payments from $600 to $2,000. We know that. And Donald Trump says the Senate will start the process for a vote that increases checks to $2,000. Now, we'll have to see if that's going to end up being contingent upon a repeal to Section 230, which that's not going to happen because we even heard Republicans today say, no way, we're not voting against 230. This is not the time or the place to do it. We'll see. That was mentioned in the House. And that an investigation should be started into voter fraud. We'll see. That might not be as important of a stumbling block. Either way, the interesting connection here is that it looks like Donald Trump coordinated with Mitch McConnell prior to Donald Trump saying, all right, I'll go ahead and sign the $600 stimulus check bill. After all, Politico reported today that Kevin McCarthy, Lindsey Graham, and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin all spoke with Donald Trump on numerous phone calls for 3 days leading up to Donald Trump's Sunday signing, trying to convince Donald Trump to sign. In fact, McCarthy, Mnuchin, and Mark Meadows realized that the best way to convince Donald Trump to do something is to literally take him out golfing and wear him down. But why would Donald Trump get worn down if him passing the $600 stimulus check bill kind of makes him look like he just wasted a week of everyone? Now, I will say the Treasury Department still thinks they might be able to get stimulus checks out this week, so maybe we didn't actually lose a week. But the expectation here is that maybe Donald Trump is quite possibly thinking, well, it could be one of two things. Maybe he's thinking, I better sign because otherwise I'm going to be creating an eviction crisis and an unemployment crisis, which Biden might potentially just swoop in and solve, basically burning Donald Trump's legacy in the last days of his office. Or it's entirely possible that Donald Trump has some sort of handshake deal with Mitch McConnell that the $2,000 stimulus check vote is actually going to get a vote. And then Bernie Sanders' filibuster wouldn't be needed anyway. That would be very interesting. Chuck Schumer tells us that he's going to try to bring up the $2,000 stimulus check bill, known as the Cash Act, for a vote tomorrow on Tuesday. However, any one senator could block Chuck Schumer's attempt. Instead, it's really going to rely on or come down to Mitch McConnell. He's got the power to bring this bill to the floor or not. Bernie Sanders says he's going to apply pressure with the filibuster. But again, all Bernie Sanders can really do here is delay and try to cause issues with the senators' campaigns on Saturday and Sunday. Either way, though, it looks like the Senate would still be able to get past Bernie Sanders, end up overturning the NDAA veto, and then adjourning for the 116th Congress for the last time, and then all bills would get deleted that are still in the pipeline, aka that $2,000 check amendment would just evaporate. It would disappear by January 4th. And again, it's also interesting to note that even though Bernie Sanders is really becoming this champion of the bigger checks, he did throw in the towel last time. Last time, he ultimately pushed and said he wasn't going to sign a bill that didn't have substantial stimulus checks and he would do whatever he could to block such a bill. But then he ultimately called the $600 check a bill a good start and said we'll need to do more in the future. And he kind of threw in the towel and ended up not objecting to the bill. Now, Bernie Sanders does hope that $2,000 stimulus checks could be voted on no later than Wednesday. So you've got Chuck Schumer's going to try on Tuesday. Bernie Sanders is hoping it's going to get done on a Wednesday. And then we might have to get into filibuster territory. So we'll see how the next few days evolve. They'll be really interesting. Ultimately, though, Bernie Sanders says the American people are desperate, and the Senate has got to do its job before they leave town. Now, to get the $2,000 stimulus checks, remember, we need two things. We need McConnell to allow a vote on the bill, and we need 12 to 13 Republicans to join the Democrats and independents to get this bill passed. Senator Hawley and Marco Rubio are both Republicans, and they've already expressed their willingness to pass the $2,000 stimulus checks. Back in March, Mitt Romney proposed $1,000 checks to every American before we got the $1,200 checks. But now a lot of Republicans, including Romney, say, no, not fair to borrow from our future generations. And remember, economists disagree with that, but it's still a belief that Republicans hold. Ultimately, if Congress does vote for the $2,000 stimulus checks in the Senate, there's a good chance that we're going to get the Republican support to get this done. Remember, even though 2/3 of Republicans voted against the bill, you still had about 28 to 32, 33% of Republicans who ended up voting for the $2,000 stimulus checks in the House. If we maintain that same ratio, we could have a really, really tight vote and potentially get those 12 to 13 votes we need to get this through the Senate. Though right now, it seems like the biggest stumbling block is Mitch McConnell. And remember, the interesting thing here is some are arguing that this could have all been part of Donald Trump's master plan, the art of the deal, as they say. Unfortunately, the majority of Mitch McConnell's party is not going to back him, and this is going to put Mitch McConnell in a weird spot with his delegation, his Republican delegation. If he brings the bill to the floor, he's going to be doing so against the interests of about 2/3 of Republicans in the Senate. That'll divide the Senate and the Republican Party, which could potentially be bad for the Georgia runoff election, although getting $2,000 stimulus checks could be good for the runoff election. Who knows? Those are the issues at play. This is everything that we've got right now on the $2,000 stimulus checks. If you found this helpful, consider sharing this so you could catch everybody you know up to speed on what the heck is going on with these $2,000 stimulus checks. In the meantime, we'll get our $600 checks. Those will not be delayed. If we end up getting $2K, we'll just get an extra $1,400 sent to us later. And you can still get 4 free stocks with Webull when you deposit $100 and get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes via the links down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.